Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Kolpack and Izzo Podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank. North Dakota State set to wrap up the 2022 regular season with a visit from the University of North Dakota, the 115th meeting between the Bison and the Fighting Hawks. Can you confirm the rumor that a Kolpack has covered all 114 previous matchups?
Maybe close. I'm about at 67 of them, I think. Feels like it anyway today.
And your dad obviously covered quite a bit. Your bro covered some. I wasn't joking. That's pretty cool. You'd have to count it up here.
I'm not sure.
Give me that stat by Saturday.
Yeah, I'm not sure when my dad first started because he and Eugene Fitzgerald, I think, took turns back in the early 60s. But so, it's one of those things where you just don't know. But I'm doing a story on the 50th anniversary of one of the most prolific games in the series history, and that was in 1972, of course. Don Severson, a quarterback from Central Cass, who the previous year quit school, came back, wasn't having the greatest year. They're down 17-7 up at UND after three quarters. He orchestrates this amazing comeback. The Bison win 22-17. And in doing some research, I went back into the old archives. And here was the lead. It wasn't from my dad, but it was somebody else covering the game, okay. Dan Nelson. Through most of North Dakota State University's football battle with North Dakota here Saturday, Bison quarterback Don Severson was trailing two UND cheerleaders and a tuba player in the most valuable player voting. How harsh is that? Whoa.
Wow, that is quite the lead. Holy cow.
Oh.
That's coming out with a 2x4 to start.
And so I asked Donnie that, and he goes, yeah, that was the truth.
Did he agree with that?
That's the truth.
That's what makes what Saturday has on the line so much fun to me. And I know Big E went off on him and Mike on their podcast about my stance on this. I know you'll roll your eyes on it, about where the game is in the schedule. But it adds something to it, Jeff, when there's so much at stake, and there is for both teams in this game. That's why when Ohio State plays Michigan next weekend, there's so much at stake for that. That's why these games deserve to be at the end, because there's so much that can be determined out of this.
How can they deny it? Because last year was a season opener and certainly didn't have the implications that it has right now.
Oh, I mean, Mike made
the statement.
Did they deny it? Not Mike. Big E was rolling his eyes like saying, it's got to, have all the games at the end. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you pick one. Either it's the Jacks or UND, and that's the last game every single year.
Well,
one or the other.
When they make the schedule, could they do it as such that they take each team's whatever matchup, whatever the rivalry matchup, can't you just automatically put it at the end of the year?
I would hope so. It has not happened.
I mean, they do it at Ohio State, Michigan. They do it elsewhere.
See, other schools would argue, well, who's Youngstown's rival? You know what? Give them their closest one. If it's Indiana State, heck, if it's Murray State.
Do it every year. It may turn into something.
I mean, Illinois State and Western Illinois are not considered probably, but they've played 100 and some odd times. So they are rivals. Go ahead and play them at the end of the year. You got an even number of teams next year. Make it work. 6 games at the end of the season, and that's your rivalry game.
Who's going to be Murray's big rival?
Indiana State? I don't know. Just make it happen. Well, let's jump off on this point here because we're going to have our bracketology show on Saturday night. Much has been made over, I'd say, the last week on where should NDSU be seated. So I'll ask you this. If the Bison win Saturday.
If everybody wins out as we think.
Yeah, where should the Bison go?
I think they should be 4, but I think they'll be 5.
Really?
Yep. I think Samford's resume will end up being better. I think, obviously, Montana State would. Obviously, Sac State and South Dakota State. It comes down to, I suppose, Samford and NDSU, and when you're 10-1 unbeaten against FCS with a loss to Georgia,
right? You'd be conference,
and the Valley's down,
and they'd be a conference champion too. I think that matters. Samford would have.
To
won
me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer when you look at the criteria.
I think most of the people that I look at bracket-wise have NDSU still as the 4 and Samford as the 5. If that's the Valley carrying some strength there, that North Dakota State, if they win out, their losses would have been a 3-point loss to an FBS Power 5 team and a 2-point loss to maybe the best team in the division.
Well, if they beat UND and they get the number 4 seed, that would be the only reason. Right, strength of schedule, pedigree, home playoff games, money,
brand,
been to Frisco, all that stuff.
Otherwise, they potentially could have to go on the road for a quarterfinal game, which they did in 2010, which was the Eastern Washington game, and obviously in the spring of 21, which was at Sam Houston State, which I know the detractors would say the Bison lost both of those games. So if you get them out of the Fargo Dome, we'll see what happens. But that, I think we're making fun of the Ohio Valley coin flip. I think it's a total coin flip with the committee on this with NDSU and Samford. I think you could talk yourself into one or the other, honestly, on where you could see them seated on Saturday.
If we tie for the nickel pick'em, do we flip a coin? What do we do? What is the tiebreaker? I don't think we will, but
you're so consumed with that this week. It's all your thoughts are on winning this thing.
I need a life.
It's been a few years since you've won it. You won it back.
2 years.
It's a long time, man. In college football, that goes on a while. I don't have the tiebreaker. We're not cutting it in half. I can tell you that right now. We're not going to do that. So for UND comes into this game a mark of 7-3, won their last 3 after the loss to the Jackrabbits, beat Abilene Christian, who we believe is going to get into the tournament as well. That was a quality win. Dusted Indiana State, where I think some of us thought, well, we'll see. Bison struggled in Terre Haute. Well, UND didn't have any issues. And then special teams bailed them out and won the game last week against South Dakota. What do you make of Bubba's team for 2022?
I make they have a more prolific offense than people give them credit for, averaging, I didn't see it this week, but 31.5 points a game going into last week.
Still at that number, yeah.
Yep, so didn't obviously go deviate from that too much. And it's not this wild, crazy offense. It's pretty basic, but they're so good at it. Tommy Schuster's on point. 84% in his last 9.5 quarters. I mean, I don't care if it's just out passes, short stuff, you're still completing at an incredibly high ratio. And Tommy Schuster just keeps getting better. Here's this guy coming out of high school who had mostly D2 looks. UND took him because I think their other guy decommitted.
Yeah, went to Texas State.
Yep. And look what he's done now.
Become the all-time passing leader for the school. He's been really good this year. He's been really, really good. Is he Nick Baker elusive? I'm not going to go that far.
No, not that quite.
But he's in the ballpark there.
He's gotten better.
He's been able to use, and Bubba Schweiger told me that on Hot Mic on Thursday, is that we wanted him to use his legs more to just extend the play. Just don't be throwing the ball out of bounds or running out of bounds. Can we make something happen with your legs? He's done that. Now, is he Baker that could take off like he had Saturday and make a 30-yard run? I don't think so. But can he extend a play? Yeah. He can do that, which the Bison defense had to be pulling its hair out on Saturday when they were facing Baker and him doing that.
Well, I think that's the hardest thing for a defense to defend is when the play breaks down and he's able to escape pressure and buy a couple, 3 more seconds. Now your D-backs and your linebackers, they're defending guys for, 5, 6, 7 seconds. That's hard to do.
They also added a transfer in Tyler Hoosman from the University of Northern Iowa who has replaced Otis Weah and then some, has become really their go-to guy at running back and has been really, really solid for them.
Makes you wonder what happened at Northern Iowa, that he fell off the depth chart so hard that he hardly got any carries last year. He was non-existent. He was like number 3 or 4 back.
We saw him briefly in the spring when the Bison went to Cedar Falls. I think he had 2 touchdowns in that game when the Bison played down there. But yeah, he didn't play at all in the fall of 2021.
Was he hurt last year? Did he fall out of favor with Mark Farley? Did he what? So what? It makes you wonder what went on there. I don't think the other backs were that great. If you look at Northern Iowa's offense
for this season, there was nothing that would blow you away and say, "Boy, those guys, they had to play."
Or maybe just simply a new beginning was what he needed.
And it's clearly worked because he has become their go-to guy, along with Isaiah Smith, who's also a talented running back.
Yeah, I thought Isaiah Smith would be the guy this year. I thought he'd be the Hoosman of this season, and he's still pretty good. But replacing Otis Weah was a big question, and Hoosman's been pretty close.
Now you look, their scoring offense. They average 31 points a game. Jeffrey, they give up almost 30 points a game defensively.
Now that could be the issue,
and that's the real bugaboo with this Fighting Hawks team. Where you look, especially on their back end, where they lost. Sammy Fort got hurt earlier in this season. C.J. Siegel's been really good, but the secondary for UND has been a real issue this year.
To run the 3-4 and to run it effectively, and we've known this for years, and the way UND has run it, you need a really good nose guard. You need a guy that's just a disruptor. You go back to Division II days, I look at a guy like Mark Callahan from Central, was just a dude in that spot and just caused problems and freed up space for your linebackers. So now on the flip side, if you're not really great in those spots, then all of a sudden you get a Bison offensive lineman matched up on a linebacker in a blocking situation.
Right.
That's a different deal. And the old lineman will probably win that every time or most times. So that's where if you run the 3-4, you better be good in certain spots.
They've been better at linebacker than I thought. McNabo's been really good, the transfer from Minnesota. Chernowski's been a dude since he transferred in from St. Cloud State. Those are two guys that have really stood out to me. The loss of Fort is tough, and Siegel's been basically almost on an island back there where teams have been able to pick on the opposing corner, where I was visiting with Tom Miller from the Herald yesterday. That's a position he thinks they need to go and really hit the portal hard on for next season. I don't know if they love Jamal Dixon, the young man from Moorhead, but there's still some spots that they need to address there.
But have you ever known NDSU to go back and just pick on one guy?
Not necessarily.
Certainly.
No. But that's when you look at how the Bison offense has been different since the bye week, where they threw it 30 times against Illinois State. Then they ran it 55 times against Western Illinois. They only threw it 11 times last week against SIU. I don't know if we're going to see the air raid Bison on Saturday, but that would portend to think that way just because of how UND's pass defense is.
Well, maybe, and you can do that better at home.
Exactly
with
right.
The crowd,
the conditions.
with a little more quiet when you're on offense, and you can maybe do some audibles. And when Cam Miller threw it 31 times, that wasn't part of the game plan. He went up to the line of scrimmage right as we were told
that way, right?
And changed a lot of run plays to pass plays based on what he saw in the defense.
Schuster's numbers, though, 71% completion percentage, 16 touchdowns to 5 picks. He's been really, really good. The guy that UND, they've lacked at that spot in the Division I era, Schuster has become that at quarterback, and I didn't think that would happen for him.
I'll be curious to see if the Bison D-backs really play tight and try to take away some of that quick stuff. You can't take away everything,
right?
But UND just makes a living on little quick passes.
Bubble screen, something
Schuster
like that.
Can get it out quick. He's really good at that. So I'll be interested to see if they dare Schuster to go long.
There's a couple guys in that secondary. Marquise Siegel's reps keep going up. Young man from Omaha has had a really nice 2022. That's a guy to keep an eye on where you're talking about. If you see him against a Belquist, against an Adam Zavalny, against a Garrett Mogg, that's a guy that's out there almost taped to him, so to speak.
And they thought Siegel would get better as the year went on, and they really liked his potential. They like his size. They like his physical ability.
He's a former wrestler in the high school level, so he knows how to tackle.
He may be seeing more reps than anybody else. I mean, I guess you got Courtney Eubanks, who's been pretty solid.
Yep. Talbert's, that whole unit, Talbert, Price, Siegel, Eubanks, all of them been really, really good this year at the cornerback spot.
And then you got the veterans at safety.
I mean, what do you say about those guys on the back end? For the Bison, they're in the rare position, at least for me, that there's still a ton to play for. How many times have we got to the regular season finale like, Jeff, well, they already got the league auto bid clinch. They already have home field. That is not the case. And granted, Senior Day already brings a ton of emotion, but there is a lot on the line, as we talked about off the top, for the Bison to play for here on Saturday.
That's pretty fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
You're not reporting on if they win this game, it'll be a number one seed. The Valley's already wrapped up.
No.
Or tie for the title's already wrapped up. Little different feel this year. Little different urgency, certainly for the final game.
And that's, to me, the interesting part to see how NDSU comes out in this game. If they're going to come out, blow the doors off, with the emotion of Senior Day, and we're going to take it to them. You have to also throw on this, and I can't believe we've gone 14 minutes, and mention the fact that Mason Miller is done for the season, and Hunter Lipke will not be playing. I would be stunned if he plays again this season for the Bison, frankly.
Probably. I mean,
when you're getting a second opinion, it means probably the first opinion was likely you need surgery to be shut down.
Mason Miller, I really like the guy. Great kid, good player, starter, but Gray Zabel is one of the best. What do you say, sixth man in the country?
Yeah, he's utility guy
on
offensive line.
So I don't think that's such a huge loss on the field. I look at Hunter Lipke, though. He's been so good against UND. He was the guy in the fourth quarter last year. He had the big touchdown run right off the bat 2 years ago in the spring. 34-13 win. Yeah, Lipke's a big loss, but it's not like they don't have anybody else.
But here's the thing:
he adds that extra dimension.
He's the home run hitter.
Yeah.
Here's the question: who's the home run hitter if Lipke's not there?
Well, Tamarick or Kobe are 1A tied.
See, they I don't know. They're to me they're doubles hitters. They're more that they occasionally hit one, but they're more sporadic at that. Lipke almost every time he may take it to the house.
Threat to break a tackle so often.
And that's the thing. Johnson can have it, and he had a couple times last week where he nearly got it but didn't. And that to me is the difference between, though I'm not saying Kobe's not a really good player because he is, but there's only one that's like Lipke, and that's why where this game, if he's healthy, I think it's maybe a 2-touchdown spread. Now it's, to me, this is going to be a much tighter football game in my mind.
And we also haven't talked about the fact there's going to be a draft choice in Cody Mauk on one side. Yep. You have Nash Jensen, who's invited to a postseason All-Star game up front. That's a pretty good credentialed offensive line there.
Just on your left side. That's where you run, man. You run to the left side. We got those two guys blocking out there. But I think for Bison fans that think, well, maybe we'll see 44. This is total guess. I don't know if you see him again this season. If you're getting a second opinion, unfortunately, you've had way more surgeries and that doctor visits than I ever have. But when you're seeking a second opinion, it means the first one wasn't what you wanted to hear, correct?
Usually. Although it could be, in this case, being an NFL draft pick possibility that they want a second opinion for safety's sake, too.
Right, and you've got to take that into consideration here. It's not just, hey, I'm going to tape it up and go for my school. He has literally millions of dollars potentially at stake beyond whatever his North Dakota State football career is, and that's no small matter in this. Now, here's the thing. He still has the extra year of eligibility. If this ends up costing him and he can't do all the NFL stuff,
does what Noah tried to do.
Does he consider to come back and play another year
of
football?
Well, I guess it all depends on severity.
Right. If you can't do the Senior Bowl and you can't do the Combine, then why do it? You know what I mean? Christian Watson made his millions. How? At the Combine and the Senior Bowl. That's where he did it. If you can't do that stuff, then you might as well come back if you have the opportunity to do that and bolster your draft status that way. That would be me, but I'm no agent.
Stuff, isn't
right?
It?
It's just huge. It really is. And you, by the way, you found out the other two graduating, Anthony Coleman and Jalen Bussey. Now, Bussey's an interesting name in there because Bussey is is a true senior. So he has the extra year if he wanted to come back. I don't know if he will use that. Again, he has not seen the field a whole lot this
year.
He's
not.
Right. He's going to move on.
He's moving on.
Yeah.
And I think falling off the depth chart this year probably was a preeminent thought on that. I mean, if you're the starting guy, you probably come back.
Right.
But he's just not. He had such a burst as a freshman.
Yep.
Just haven't really seen that.
You saw the glimpses last year, I think. There were sporadic times last year where he'd come in and hit the home run. I feel like he was
faster as a true freshman.
Yeah.
I mean, those runs against Western, again, granted, it's Western Illinois, but it was so night and day how he just pulled away.
But I know we're getting ahead of ourselves. Just the guys that are already decided to come back, Jeff, I mean, this is a laundry list. Kobe Johnson has decided to come back. Zach Mathis is going to come back. Wadarsik's coming back. Tony Pierce is going to come back. I mean, you've got some Jake Kubis is going to be back up front. Again, this could change, and at least for the information I'm being told, all those guys, Jaden Price is going to come back. There are some dudes back for next season.
Could Tamarick come back?
He could.
He must be given the combine, or not the. He's not going to go to the combine. He's not that type of guy. But I think this is his pro. He's given it his shot.
Yeah,
now. Probably feels I'm as healthy as I can be. This is it.
And at that position, there are no seniors there, as you well know. That is a crowded room to begin with, and I think there might be some more movement there after the season is done. If it's for the portal,
and you got the Brown kid come from Omaha.
Right.
It's pretty highly touted.
Right.
Again, getting ahead of ourselves here, but there's players there. I think Pennu could figure
Barrica's
in.
shown some stuff this year too, so that's something to keep an eye on as we go forward. Let's talk about what I think is the big elephant here is the crowd. Because we did not see that when UND came in the spring of 21. It was half filled. It still was a pretty good crowd, but it will be a different environment on Saturday there.
Well, and people are looking for tickets.
How about that?
Yeah, they're looking for tickets late in November. Certainly will have a factor. I think when you look at picking this game, it's going to be a second half game. It's going to be a fourth quarter game. Will the fans stick around?
If you're not going to stay for this one, you're not going to stay for any.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I would think they will be there, and I think there'll be quite the contingent from Grand Forks or UND fans that will be loud at the Dome. I really believe that. I know they've scarfed up some tickets, and it's going to be a great environment in there on Saturday for both teams. And this is now, what is it, the 5th Division I matchup they've had, and only the one that was up in Grand Forks was frankly close. The games down in Fargo have been butt kickings. I don't foresee that happening on Saturday. I think we're going to have, like you said, a tight 4-quarter football game on Saturday. Yeah. I really think so.
Yeah, and if UND's defense can hang in there, certainly these games rarely get in a shootout. They just almost never do. One team, NDSU's gone off, but it's never been like a 39-35 game. It's rare that that's happened. I haven't really looked at the scores. It's total gut feeling. So I expect a slobber knocker.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go off the top of my head here. I know the time I've been here, we haven't had anything like that. Let me look real quick here, just in the history of this game. Maybe the last time they played prior in Grand Forks was 28-21. Do you want to call that a shootout?
No.
Okay.
It's got to be in the 30s. A shootout is both teams in the 30s.
Okay. Well, they got 39-25 when Kleinsasser scored the big touchdown in 98 down here. 35-28 in 91.
Close.
That was at Dakota Field. If I say that was the Eric Hegerle play there. After that, they're blowouts for a while. You're going back a ways here now, Kolpack. I don't see any game with each team in the 30s. No, that's not happening.
Never.
Not happened in the history of this rivalry. Is just looking at it quick. We've had a couple close calls. 38-20, 34-27. Yeah, I got nothing for you there. So we haven't really had a shootout. Close, but nothing in your definition of it.
We've had many shootouts, but we haven't had a good old West.
No,
a good old wild West.
Yeah, we haven't had a Big Sky game breakout in the history of this rivalry. No, that has not happened. A lot of like 7-6, 7-7.
That's
7-0.
been more the norm, right?
I'm looking 24-21, 14-7, 10-3. 21-14, 14-7, 13-10. Last year, 16-10. That's been the more score du jour of this than
score du jour. Very good.
Than the other of what we've seen. What you're asking for, which I imagine we're going to see again. That's why I'll ask you, how important is the start here? The Bison are going to come out roaring, home crowd, senior day for UND to kind of hold things down and stem the tide, right?
Probably bigger than playing Illinois State or something like that. Just keeping the mojo going with your home crowd, getting them involved early.
I agree. Before we wrap up here, and we're saving our picks for Saturday, so you don't have to worry. You're not going to spoil anything there. But game day is going to be in Bozeman Saturday morning. Should be a great environment for the Brawl of the Wild game. I'm just interested to see how that comes off. And that football game is massive for the division. If Montana is somehow able to win, that certainly could help NDSU move up from potentially 5, maybe all the way up to the 3 spot.
There's a couple of little small items to this. I think it helps Brent Vegan that he went through game day here once and knows how to handle that. I would guess they'll visit the set on Friday, just sort of get it out of your system and take photos and then, get ready to play a game. You can't avoid it. You can't ignore it. And NDSU in the 2 years they had it, granted the opponent was bad, but they didn't ignore it. They didn't like, it's all about the game. No, they embraced it. And I think you have to do that for Montana State to a certain degree. And 2, what kind of space heaters is Home Depot going to provide the crew here?
Well, I don't think Corso's going to be there because he's been battling some health issues. But
I want to see Pat McAfee start doing some snowboarding over at Bridger.
God, he will. Are you kidding? He might not even wear a coat on Saturday. The kind of guy he is, he just roll like that. It will. Where are they set up? You tweeted this out.
The northeast, the field in the northeast corner. If you can picture that.
Okay, so the mountains will be behind them then, right?
Correct.
Well, that'll be a heck of a backdrop. That'll be a heck of a scene there, which it'll be
the
in
press box side will be in the background, and then probably the Rockies. You're looking toward Big Sky.
I want to say because the show starts at 7 a.m. Mountain. It'll be in the dark almost to start, right? Before they probably by 8 o'clock, maybe halfway through the show, you'll finally actually be able to see the mountains. It's funny. I think I'm going to have the voice of the Grizz on a hot mic tomorrow, but feels like Montana did all the heavy lifting on this last year. Remember that they were, and now they gave it to Montana State. I know Drew Trafton was telling me that. He'd go, "Oh, Montana did all that.
Slighted.
They did all the heavy lifting, and then the Bobcats get it." That's what makes, again, they play the final game of the season every year, people. Hello. Just throwing it out there.
You whine a lot, man. You whine and cry.
I learned from the master on that, on figuring out stuff. Couple other games for people to keep an eye on Saturday, and you got the game this weekend. We got Harvard-Yale. That's pretty good. Always for a fun ride. The Davis-Sac State game. We're going to pick it on Saturday, but your buddy Dan Hawkins might be throwing the ultimate fly in the ointment here if they're able to win on Saturday afternoon.
They're hot. They've won, 5 in a row?
5 in a row.
Where's the game at?
The game's at Sac State.
Can a team go? It's hard to go unbeaten. Things are all wrapped up. It's the Causeway Classic. Davis has everything to play for. That's a tough pick. It's a tough pick.
I love the fact they went to Moscow last week and whipped Idaho. They win this, and Montana's able to beat Montana State. You're getting 6 Big Sky teams in.
Ooh, that's for sure. You're getting 3, maybe 2 Valley.
Right.
Depending on how things
shake out. And that's why that stupid coin flip in the Ohio Valley could really mess everything up. It really could.
And if that goes the wrong way, then you're probably getting 2 Valley.
That's why if you're UND, and I'm sure there are people listening and saying, well, it's just a Bison Homer podcast. It's not that. There's a real threat there. If you have those two things happen, UC Davis win, Montana win, and the coin flip to determine the Ohio Valley, which we should let people know.
What's another 8-3 team in?
No, not even. It's a 7-4. Tennessee Martin 7-4.
I know, but then that would put SEMO at they'd be 8-3
or 9-2 if they win.
But
they're
if they
guaranteed
lose,
in. If they lose, then the coin flip's moot.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Do you know what I'm saying? They would get it. You're sealing at least 2 at-large bids. I think UND is in. I honestly
you have to take
that.
3, don't you?
From the top league, I think, and I know they have not had a good year. The Valley total has not been strong, and you were on that early on. I'll give you kudos on that you called that, I think, right before Columbus Day, that things were trending in a direction where the Valley would look like it might beat each other up, and then exactly what ended up happening. You cannot have a league champion declared by a coin flip and then not have it live streamed. You need transparency on this. It's just a joke. The fact that there are 7 teams in the Ohio Valley and you can't figure out a way for everybody to play. I mean, you're right. I do complain about scheduling all the time. That one is well earned.
That's a head scratcher.
You got to figure out a way to get everybody to play. And that's why when we do our show on Saturday night, honestly, we shoot for 22, 23. If we get 20 out of the 24, depending on some of these results, I'd be happy with that this year with how things are trending.
CAA, how many get in there?
5. I think they're getting 5.
Come on.
And you know why? And McFeely brought this up, and he's dead on. With James Madison leaving, Jacksonville State, Sam Houston State moving on, there are more teams that can win games because all those teams that used to win 5 or 6, they lost those. So now they could get to 6 or 7 or even 8 wins because you don't have to play those schools anymore.
You're talking about the William and Marys of the world.
Yes. Those are schools that used to, we're not going to beat James Madison, so we might get to 7. Now, heck, they don't play them. And we get Monmouth. We trade out James Madison for Monmouth. I'll take that.
So instead of the 10-1 teams that have left, now you have 8-3 teams.
Exactly right. And you have a cluster of teams on the bubble or want to get in.
You have 2 to 3 more 8-3 teams when you get rid of the 10-1 team.
Exactly right. Another reason why.
It's my Fargo South math,
there
baby.
You go. And exactly why it's time to look elsewhere if you're looking at the FC. I love this Saturday, and I love our show, the Selection Show, but when you see some of the teams in here, people are going to shake their heads like, really? They're in this year? It's going to be really intriguing to see how it plays out. Don't forget, Bison Game Day is live, 10 a.m. on Saturday morning on WDAY. Jeff, myself, Kyle Emanuel, Logan Campbell on our final regular season pregame show. And then the game broadcast begins at 2:20. You will see the Senior Day introductions live on WDAY. Kickoff shortly after 2:30. We'll do our postgame show. Mike and Eric will helm that. And Jeff and I will be back about 9 o'clock, I'd say, Saturday night. You can see the bracketology show for the 11th consecutive year. We'll bring the most awkward moment in television next to Butler Cabin.
What are we going to do?
It's up to you, man. You've raised the bar.
Got 2 days to come up with something.
Over the last decade. The best one still is you vacuuming in the WDAY studios. I really enjoyed that one.
I thought the weather one was pretty good.
Last year was pretty good. You got to top that. Maybe we'll put you on the big set. Maybe reading some news stories.
Dana Mock Jr.
You can do that. Maybe we can have you do that. So that's coming up. And then, of course, the selection show is 11:30 on Sunday morning. That's on ESPNU. We got to roll. We'll see everybody on Saturday. For Jeff Kolpack, I'm Dom Izzo. That's the latest Kolpack and Izzo podcast, brought to you by Gate City Bank.